Hey, this is Steve here with a tutorial on how to prepare a document for web. Let's say you want to do a cool meme or a banner for a website or a Facebook header or whatever it is. You have your dimensions. What I'm going to do here is we're going to come up to File. And one thing I've always done over the years, and I don't have to anymore, but New. And you could click New. But one thing I recommend is when you come up here, you look right here, you see these are the shortcuts. So Control N, and I remind myself, no, and I do the shortcut, Control N. And if you look in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it's going to show you what I'm pushing, the buttons I'm pushing. So if you want to pay attention to that as well for the visual. So when we come in here, this is our tool to, and I don't know all the terminology for all this stuff, but this is the window we use to create our document. So when we're creating web, we do pixels. You see all these options here. I use pixels and inches. Pixels for web, inches for print. We'll get into that later. This is pixels, web. And then width and height. Whenever I create a meme or, the dimensions, you got to do them accordingly. But when I do a meme, I do 1080 by 1080, and that's pixels. Figures about 300 pixels in an inch or whatever it is, I forget. But so 300, the resolution is dots per inch. So 300 is what we use for print. On web, it's 72. So when you take a image off of Google and you stretch it and it gets blurry, that's why. It's usually 72 dpi. When you stretch it to something that's, say, supposed to be 300 dpi, you're going to get all that loss of information, which translates in blur because it doesn't have all the dots to fill in the colors. And then RGB. RGB is red, green, blue. And for print, we do CMYK. Don't worry about that. We're doing RGB. RGB is red, green, blue. That's your color palette. And those are the red, green, and the blue are the colors they use to basically mix all the colors you use. And just for fun, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Those are the four colors they use, the four color process. RGB, 72 pixels, always for web. So that's our canvas. And now I'm not going to get all fancy here. We're just going to, I'm assuming you know how to pick a color. We can do that in another thing, but I'm just typing my name. And come up here, and then when we stretch something, and again this might be another tutorial, but when we stretch something, see how it's all like wonky, like Control Z always goes back. So we stretch it, it's not what we want. Control Z, and Control Z, it like kind of teeters between your last move and your next move. If you hold Control Shift Z, whoops. See, I'm Control Alt Z. It actually goes back, and then Control Shift Z brings it back. But whatever, those might be other tutorials. Hold Shift is what I was getting into. Hold Shift, and that keeps the proportions. And then you could double click, and then it gives you that. Or you could stretch it, and then come up here and click this, and click Apply, and it gives you the same thing. Double clicking is just a little quicker, but if you got a lot of time and abundance of time, then you could do the other. Whatever you choose, there's no wrong way. So Steve, this is my meme. This is a beautiful meme. It's going to get 1 million shares. And then so we come up to File, Save As. And again, oh look, Shift Control S. Not everything has a shortcut, but when it does, let's get into the habit. And then so we would save it. I would type Steve meme, and I could save it as a PSD, which I recommend. Save everything as a raw file, and then come back and save a version as a JPEG, and then you hit save. And when you hit save, it's going to bring up this dialog box. And quality, this is how we're at the best quality. We want the best, and we hit OK. I'm not going to here, but we would hit OK, and then it's saved. And now I'm going to get into another thing really quick. File, New. Now when we come down here, this is our same dialog box, white. See how we have the white background up here? If we go into transparent and create it, see this? The checkered box is just for your visual reference. It's really not there. There's nothing there. And in your settings, you could get rid of them actually. So we're going to instead of typing Steve because it took so long, like hours, we're going to just drag it over. And so now, for instance, if I wanted to save this and it be my logo or whatever it is and still have a border, let's say there's a drop shadow. Let's say I have a drop shadow on this and I want to put it over on top of something else. I would save it as a PNG. Now, if I save it as a PNG and go through the same process, all the default settings, whatever, play with it as the JPEG, it would actually save it with no background layer, which is pretty cool because then you could bring it into things, put it on top of things, and it just doesn't have a background layer. It's pretty neat stuff. Thank you.